morning, everyone. Welcome to this special meeting of the Yuma County Board of Supervisors. We're also sitting as all special taxing district. This is the April 30th, it's 9 a.m., and this is a call to order and pledge of allegiance for this particular meeting. Will everybody please rise for the pledge of allegiance? Will you, Supervisor McLeod, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Sure, please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There's actually just one item on the agenda. This is a discussion and action item. Question, even if it's a special session, are we required to have a call to the public no matter what?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, call public is an option. It's not mandatory. Since we didn't put it on the agenda, I'd recommend not having it today.
Oh, of course. just a reminder that I'd rather like to have it there just in case, okay, for the next time. So if you're a member of the public, just intervene at any particular time that you feel like it. Well, I should take that back. Don't do that. Ask to intervene, okay? The item in the agenda for discussion and action is discussion and possible direction regarding the fiscal year 2018-2019 funding options. That doesn't sound, funding options, huh?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the board, we are here today to present a briefing of the proposed budget, and there are a couple of options that we'd like you to consider depending on what funding requirements we have from the state related to the EORP pension situation, as well as other costs that are included in the budget or are not included in the budget that still need to be addressed. So we want to get your direction on addressing those items, and then the cost implications and any funding options that you would like us to look at. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jim Flory to make the presentation.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the FY 18-19 recommended budget. We're starting out with a table that shows the significant impacts in Yuma County from state and federal actions. The top one at $3.5 million is PILT. At this point, we have an annual appropriation for PILT every year, but if that did go away, it would be a $3.5 million hit to the county's budget. That number is actually the actual amount for 16-17, and it would total 30 cents in primary property tax rate if that was gone to replace it. The next part of the table are existing state cost shifts to Yuma County General Fund budget. So we already have these in our budget. Department of Revenue, $202,000 or 1.7 cents of tax rate to replace. Juvenile Corrections, just under $345,000 or almost 3 cents in tax rate, and uncompensated care, $183,900, approximately 1.5 cents in tax rate. So these existing state cost shifts are costing the general fund $731,529, and if to replace them, it would take 6.2 cents roughly of property tax rate levy rate. We also are showing at the bottom a potential cost, which is the discussed increase in the elected officials' retirement plan rate going from 23.5 to 61.5%. This would cost the general fund $757,000 a year, or 6.4 cents to replace from property taxes. This is a county and state shared sales tax.
Back up a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're going to go through the presentation. Is this the way you're going to do it? You're going to go through all the presentation and then we get to ask you questions or any comments? Or
Questions at any point, anytime.
can we start adding stuff or taking stuff, or do we want to wait until the end of it?
I would ask that you let him make the presentation first and then have some.
I just got to break its stride. It's going too fast. Go ahead.
So in the current fiscal year, we budgeted $12.6 million for county sales tax. The projection, we're actually going to receive about $12.8. So that's a $200,000 increase. For 18-19, the recommended budget is $13.1 million, which is 2.1% increase over what we're projecting to receive in the current fiscal year. In state shared, this year we budgeted 20.8 million. Our projected receipts are 21.2, which is a 2.2% increase over what we budgeted. For 18-19, we're recommending just under 21.9, or a 3% increase. So you can see we've been conservative on both percentage increases for both of the sales tax categories. On state share, we always like to talk about the fact that while we are recommending a budget of 21.9, the county doesn't get to spend 21.9. We don't actually have our access and outtakes amounts yet, so we're just estimating a 1% increase, but out of that 21.9, we're estimating we would have about 12.6 million that the county would be able to use.
When do you expect you'll know those numbers, Tim?
It's going to be a little while yet. I normally get them out of the Senate bill, the appropriation bill, but we also do get a letter from the state. But it won't be for a little bit yet.
A few weeks?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Jim,
Yeah, sure.
is there a chance that those numbers are going to get, the money we get is going to
More or less.
cut for access and all text, some of the funding
No.
because of,
You mean reduced?
yeah.
Oh, no.
It's certainly
Yeah, there's a
possible, but
chance.
that hasn't been our recent experience. Yeah.
Yeah, it goes up every year.
It goes up every year.
No more money.
The money they take from us.
Yeah, it goes up every year. I was hoping it would go down.
No. Look, there's your history.
I see it. Yes, I see.
Property taxes, the recommended budget at this point is based on what we presented to the board at the retreat, which is the current levy plus new construction. So that would be a recommended levy of 29.3 million, and would give the county an additional 459,000 of funding. However, since the assessed values went up 2.5%, that actually drove the rate down from 2.5016 to 2.4792. So the bottom table is taking a different approach. The top table is same levy plus new construction. The bottom table is same levy rate. So if we kept the 2.5016 for 18-19, the levy would go up to 29,595,000. That would generate 724,000 of additional funding for the county. That 700,000 includes the 459. So it's about 265,000 additional funding. This chart represents the difference between the adopted levies and the maximum allowable levies. So you can see from 2009 to 2011, the board adopted the maximum in those 3 years. In the middle years, the board took a much more conservative approach. The economy was slow. To help taxpayers, as you can see, we did not go to the maximum. And then you can see how it continues on. Our current recommended levy, again, is 29.3, which is just under 2.7 million below the maximum allowable levy. This table is just showing some collection rates. So in 17-18 and 18-19, for 18-19, we're recommending a collection rate of 98% on current taxes. However, every year, in addition to the current taxes, we also collect taxes from past years. So altogether, it would be about 99.7 is our recommendation. But on current taxes, 98%, which is in line with recent experience. I believe you might have this as a handout as well, but this is a history of property tax rates for the general fund, library district operations fund, library district debt service, and flood control, and then combined rates. This is a history of the levies. Same breakdown, but now we're talking levies instead of rates. I wanted to show, sometimes when we do the budget for the general fund, the fund balance percentage can look fairly low. I wanted to show you what our actuals have been over the years. So since 05-06, we've only actually had 1 year where the county ended the year with less than 20% fund balance in the general fund. The 17-18 column is a projection, of course. We don't know exactly what that's going to be.
But that included those reversions, didn't it? Just want to make sure that everybody's aware of that. That includes reversions. A couple of $1 million worth of reversions.
We put together a list of significant impacts to the general fund for FY 18-19 as compared to the current year's budget. In personnel, salaries and wages, compensation adjustment, scale adjustment, market and grade adjustments, all the various adjustments to compensation, a $1.1 million increase, retirement of $421,000 increase. This is mostly in the correctional officer retirement plan. Dependent health insurance, a $110,000 decrease, which we believe is attributable to the dependent audit that was conducted for the county. Supplies and services, legal services, a $130,000 decrease. Mental health, $165,000 decrease. These are adjustments to the amounts that we set aside each year to try to better align them with what we think we actually are going to need. Other purchase services up 114. We budgeted an economic development incentive for FY 18-19 of 100,000. And again, on the access, this is just an estimate. We don't actually know what it's going to be yet. Capital outlay, automobiles, 365,000. We're actually recommending 485,000 for 12 vehicles. But there was a vehicle in the 17-18 budget that has now come off, so that's what the difference is there. Communications equipment, we're recommending 371,000. This is primarily the audio-video equipment that's in each of the courtrooms throughout the county. Data processing equipment, this is primarily storage, servers, that sort of thing.
Before you leave, that salary and wage compensation market grade adjustment amount, does that include a salary increase for everyone, or is it, yeah?
It does. Well, by salary increase, it includes a scale movement compensation adjustment of 1%.
That seems to be like a combination of things. Does that mean that some people are going to get different increases, or there's obviously almost never any decrease, but
there could be small differences between people because if you recall, we proposed a new scale for FY 18-19.
Yeah,
so some people will need an additional adjustment to get them on the step in the new scale. So yes, there could be some variation from one employee to the next, but everybody would get the 1%.
so there's a 1% basically general increase. And how much is every percentage? How much money does it take to increase a percentage point? I'm sure, I remember, but I just want you to say it. 200 and what thousand?
What was it, Jim Paul?
Almost $389,000.
But it's going to be a little complicated because you're going through some market adjustments already, right? So not everybody, so some people are going to get a bigger increase already because of the market adjustment. So it doesn't, we're not talking a 1% flat, everybody, right? In this particular case, it's going to be complicated because you're asking us to adopt a system and you're asking us to do some market adjustments. Is that correct?
There would be 1% for everyone, and then
Including those people?
and then those people in the classifications that are getting market grade adjustments would have an additional adjustment. And if
So how
if on the new scale they don't fall on the step, they would have an adjustment to get them on the step.
That defeats the purpose of getting, well, it makes it so that some people are going to get a much, well, not a much bigger, but a bigger increase in salary than everybody.
If they're in one of the classifications that's being market adjusted, yes, they would get more.
And would that 1% be on top of their adjustment or before their adjustment?
Before or after?
After? Okay, well, let me think about that. All right, go on.
Transfers in, 356,000. That's much higher than normal amount. Normally, it's very nominal on the transfers in. That's the result of moving the fill the gap positions into the general fund. Transfers out went up 515,000, and I'll show you here just in a moment where those transfers are going. Again, we've got the potential of the EORP increase, elected officials retirement plan. We also put up an amount for a 3-year replacement fund for PILT. So over 3 years, we'd have to set aside 1.1 million per year to bring us up to that 3.5 million.
Let me ask you, is there any particular reason you picked 3 years over 2 or 4 or 5? You just came up with that?
We just came up with 3, yeah.
That comes from some of us making a comment about what happens if type of thing?
Correct.
And if we don't use the money, it stays in that particular fund, or does it?
Reserves, the county's reserves.
I mean, I know it will be in the county reserves, but it will be allocated to that? Will there be a line item that allocates it to that, so that it's not?
Within the reserve category, we have a object account called reserve for future purchases. So it will be in that line. It's still fully,
You know,
It'll-
Yeah,
it'll
I
be part
get
of
it, I get it, I get it. I understand that. I mean, my concern, you know, and it's a concern that it's been sort of driven home over the years. You know, every time we sort of set aside and put aside a fund to do something, we just take the pressure off the people that are supplying us the funding, in this case, the state. In most cases, it was the state. You know, anytime we seem to be ahead of the curve because the state was going to make some cuts, you know, we try to adjust to that, and then we ended up paying the price of having them know that that we have the money. So, you know, it just takes the pressure off of them to provide it. I like the concept of being able to deal with it. I just don't know whether, you know, putting it in a line item makes, we would know, but
that's a good point.
You know, it is a good point.
yeah, I mean, you know,
I
the
thought
moment that, you know, the moment they know that you have the money set aside, the pressure to give it to you, it's
Yeah.
non-existent.
No, that's a very good point.
Okay, well.
Maybe it's something else.
Yeah, reserves is fine, it's just that there's gonna be a line item in there.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The other item in the other significant impacts is $500,000 to build, it's a 3-year build-up for the vehicle replacement program we've been discussing. So that would bring us to the $1.5 million that it needs to fully fund that program to get it started.
Once we fund it, does it become sort of like part of a budget every year? Like a recurring cost? So it's like a replacement project.
I don't remember. What was the recurring once you get there? The recurring once you get there.
Once you get to the one in,
It's going to depend on the number of vehicles replaced in a given year, so there'll be a charge to each budget each year, depending on how many vehicles we're replacing. There's an algorithm, and we have a kind of a schedule on the number of vehicles that would be replaced in a given year. So we just kind of depend on how many that year is going to be.
so it won't be a fixed amount? It won't keep
Won't be a
building over
set amount
time?
every year, not that I recall. I believe it was variable.
Right, and we're going to be providing you a presentation about the details of that program at, I think it's the May 21st.
Okay. Yeah, it's my birthday. I'm sure it's gonna be a great gift.
So all of that comes to just under $5 million. Again, we've listed the existing state impacts that we talked about earlier, which brings the total impact on this table to just under $5.7 million.
So $2.5 million in
Recommended
preparation.
budget, every year the Human Resources receives requests to reclassify positions. In 18-19, HR received 18 requests. The recommendation is to approve 6 of them. 2 of them are in county administration, community planning supervisor, and a grants administrator. 2 are in human resources, an employee relations analyst, and a safety compliance manager. 1 in health, which is an animal control manager, and 1 in the public fiduciary, which is a lead fiduciary position. Cost to the general fund of $20,291. For all funds, $39,762. Total personnel comparison for the general fund, all categories of personnel going up 1.5 million in the general fund, almost 3.4 for all funds. This be salaries and wages, health insurance, all the various categories that we call personnel.
Mr. Chair?
Sure.
I have a question. On the previous slide, on the reclassifications, can we get a history of, at least 3 years, 4 years back, which departments have put in and which ones have gotten?
The reclassification?
Yeah, the reclassification.
Oh, I know. Oh, I got it.
I just kind of, 18 and 2 out of them are, human resources and county administrators, so administration, so it seems odd, who did the review or how does that work that 2 of them come from those departments? Or,
In other words, he's questioning the process, whereas the department that does the reclassification ends up with the bigger number of reclassifications. It's just an odd situation this year. Most of the time you refuse them.
Their history.
Yeah,
It'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be fine once you give them the history. But I can tell where his point is coming from.
I want to see the history as well, so.
She'll give it to everybody.
Okay.
It's okay. Go ahead. It's okay, Jim. Somebody was bound to figure that out.
These are the positions that we're recommending in the general fund. There's a total of 7.625. 2 are in the county assessor's office for a field data specialist. County administration, a grant specialist, 1. Development services, they're eliminating 1 position, administrative manager, requesting to add 2 office specialists, 1 at a level 1 and 1 at a level 2. Facilities management, a HVAC technician, the health district, a grant writer, 1 FT. That medical eligibility is the only general fund budget within the health district, so that's a general fund cost. Public fiduciary, a chief case investigator, superior court, and administrative assistant at 0.625 of an FT.
As you can tell, Supervisor Borges, there isn't many in the county administration line item.
Oh, human resources,
Yeah.
Excuse me, Jim or Susan, we're going to get a presentation on the justification for the 2 assessor positions.
Yes, we can do that.
I thought you had said that, I wasn't sure.
Yeah, there's a report that's in all the line item requests, but we can actually pull that out and make it officially presentation.
Just so we can understand the justification.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right.
There's a fairly lengthy report in there that we'll make sure you get.
The Cliff Notes version.
Hmm?
The Cliff Notes
The
version.
reduced version. The executive
It's actually,
Executive
summary.
There you go.
it's actually on a flash drive that we gave you on Friday. You'll actually find it in there. I can show you where after.
Oh, yeah, I didn't see it. Okay, thank you.
We talked earlier about that I would show you where the transfers out are going, so we're recommending a budget of almost $9.5 million on transfers out. Great majority of it is in the maintenance of effort for the jail district, the health district, and the debt service at the bottom there. Some smaller amounts in the middle for some attorney funds.
Can you describe that transfer out? Why is that classified as a transfer out?
These are funds that we're transferring to a special revenue fund to support that fund, either from just a decision within the county or statutorily. On the jail district, we're statutorily obligated to support them, and it's a formulaic basis for the amount. The health district, I believe, it stays the same every year. I believe on the health district, it's the amount that we were providing before it was a district. I believe that's how that one works.
Mm-hmm.
The others depend on the funding needs in the funds themselves, but the top 2 are statutory. Capital improvements. So we have a list here that we're recommending out of the general fund, totals $5.1 million. There is some other funding, so the red font means the special revenue funding in addition to general fund funding. So we have the administration building first floor renovation, this building, miscellaneous renovation projects. Every year there's numerous little projects that come up during the year, so this is funding to help with those. Fire alarm system upgrade at the Justice Center, parking lot improvements at various locations with $30,000 from the health district funding to assist with that. 197 Main Street renovation phase 2 across the street. APAS power to waste tire facility North Gila transfer site, 90,400 of that, so the great majority coming from the waste tire fund. Adair archery range environmental remediation, the county columbarium. Permit management software, we've seen this for a few years now. We are going ahead and recommending, and $250,000 of the funding of that comes from flood control. DVR surveillance cameras at the Justice Center. This is phase 2 on that project. The board adopted phase 1 for the current fiscal year. Next stand, data storage refresh. Don't ask me too many questions on that, but it has to do with the servers and storage at the Superior Court. And Oracle system upgrade, ERP upgrade, $905,000.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
on the renovation at 197, what does that include? The 1.6, what are they looking at doing in phase 2?
It would be the Board of Supervisors
Board of Supervisors.
auditorium, Board of Supervisor offices. There'd be some office space over there for communications, and I believe a studio as well, I believe. Restrooms, various things like that. So we'd be building out that large space on the first floor. And then it also includes building out the mezzanine, which I think was primarily for storage.
So it's completing the building across the street. It's to
So
finish.
that'll pretty much finish it.
That'd be
Yeah, hopefully, well, I'm gonna stop right there.
Any other questions on the list? Then we have some charts on the major districts. This is a flood control district. The blue line is sources, the red line is uses, and the green line is ending fund balance. So you can see as of 16-17, the ending fund balance was 19,600,000.
It's preparation for the big hit.
This is the health district, and it's a combination of the health district operations fund and the grant fund. 3,200,000 is the ending fund balance at the end of 16-17. Ending fund balance on 16-17, 1.7 million. Library district ending fund balance 16-17 was 4.5 million. So you can see it's got a fairly steep decline, which was planned for many, many years. But I think there'll be further discussion on that. Any questions about any of that?
Supervisor? Whoa, what?
You have a handout with more detail, well,
Yeah, we
not a
do.
lot more detail, but with all the CIP projects listed on it, a summary of all of them. On the second, on the back side, that's all the special revenue CIP requests and recommendations. There are a number of projects in special revenue with housing and road and flood. All right, thank you very much.
All right, who's next? Or are we next?
Next, I'm going to turn it over to Gil Villegas.
Villegas.
Just to,
Villegas
go through-
Casino.
We know
in
what you
Houston.
have on your mind.
Okay, Villegas, come on.
To go through the,
Villegas.
specifically the general fund resources and proposed uses of funds. And then some options that we'd like to get your feedback on as we move forward with the recommended budget.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Gil Villegas. This year, we're doing something different with the numbers for the general fund in each one of the districts. While we're trying to present here, we're trying to present a summary of all the detailed line items that Jim gave us. In essence, we're going to put everything in one spreadsheet. We're going to compare what happened and what we currently budget for fiscal year 18, what is being projected, and of course, what's going to be recommended.
When you say projected, you mean to the end of the fiscal year that we're in right now, right?
That is correct.
That would be June 30th.
It will be as of June 30th of 2018.
That's right. So the projected one is, it's just what's left. You're projecting what the fund balances are going to be at the end of June 30th, right?
Correct.
The recommended one is from the July 1st of 2018 to June 30th, 2019, which would be the year that we're talking about right now, the budget year.
Correct.
Okay.
So in essence, the spreadsheet is divided in 4 sections. That was pretty
I'm
good.
doing
Mr.
this
Chairman.
just to benefit the new members.
Thank you.
It's divided in 4 sections. We're going to start with the beginning fund balance, what we have budgeted for current fiscal year, and after our audit was completed, how much money we have. We ended up in the general fund. I have summarized all the revenues, all the sources, other sources that we are contemplating for the current fiscal year. This is where we're going to be spending most of the time, which has to do with the uses. Other uses transfers out, and of course we're going to have our difference, our excess or deficiency from uses and sources, and our fund balance. For our current fiscal year budget, at the beginning of the fiscal year, we projected that we're going to have $50 million. After our audit was completed, we noticed that we found out we have close to $2 million, more than $2 million than what was projected. So since the beginning, we have a healthy fund balance to begin with. Revenues, I'm not going to go over the detail that Jim provided us in regards to property taxes and sales tax. What I want to bring your attention to is that for the recommended fiscal year 19, like Jim said, we're starting our recommendation with new construction plus current fiscal year levy, because the assessed valuation went up, like Jim explained it. The property tax rate actually went down to 2.4792. If we were to keep our current rate, this would be the new revenue that we can expect for 19. I also have included here the maximum allowable for our property taxes.
Maximum levy.
Maximum levy, yes.
You can delete that.
That's what we used to use.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
That was a mantra before, the levy is the important one, not the tax rate. Now you can delete that one. Now the tax rate is important.
For personnel services, the first line that we have up here is pretty much the baseline. This is prior to our recommendations that we have done. Like Jim explained, we have the scale adjustment. Through the general fund would be a total of $115,000.
Yeah, there's your 380.
We have the 1% increase, $388,000. The minimum wage, that's to bring people to the new requirement. Because we're doing the scale adjustment, is bringing this number down to $2,000, almost $3,000. And then we have the recommended options that we have done, reclassifications, grade adjustments, and all that. That will bring our total personnel to $48 million, pretty much $48.5 million.
This is
Notice, yes?
Go ahead,
Yeah, go ahead.
You go ahead. You be
Okay.
the bad guy.
I'd be the bad guy. So Chairman and I caught when the question came up about the 1% pay raise. What I don't understand is why isn't that 1% calculated first? And then we see where people land on the step plan. I think you'll save the county a pretty good chunk of money if you do it that way.
Supervisor McLeod, that's an option that we can go and calculate those numbers. I don't know.
What do you think?
Well, I actually thought 1% was low for this year. I think we're doing a lot of stuff. We're doing a lot of movement, but 1%, a 1% salary increase in a budget like this where we're, looking into millions of dollars and putting in reserves, it seems to be low. I mean, 1%, I was just asking how much it cost us to do 2% and then, go through the reclassification and the grade after that. And it would probably be around, I don't know, $500,000, $600,000. But I think our employees, 1% doesn't seem, look what the teachers have done with 1%. And if we're going to go to market adjustments and so forth, it'd be better to just lift everybody up a little bit and see where they stand before we actually do the reclassifications. 1%, I'm going to recommend 2%. And if need be, we can get the money from PILT. Maybe we can do that over 4 years. I'm interested in doing that, building that up, but I'm not interested in building it up quick enough so that we can provide the government a reason to not send the money. So I'd rather think the employees could have better use of that money than.
Thank you, Mr.
At least that's
Chairman.
my take on it.
Yeah, definitely the process, what goes
be a-
first and what goes second.
It would be
we
a
can look into
2% before the market adjustment and market rates and see where that takes us. We may be able to lift everybody. Why wait until the market tells us that we are too low? It's just going to inevitably happen if we increase it by 1%. Soon we'll be looking at a market study that's going to, tell us that everybody else is behind. Anyway, that's what I would recommend anyway.
If I may.
Sure.
Gil, how much did the cost of health insurance go up this year?
It's my understanding that it didn't go up at all, sir.
Cost to the county?
Not even for the county.
Not even for the county. So when they gave that presentation where we could keep everything level, that's because our cost is remaining level? I thought our cost was up a little bit.
It would have required a 1% increase on both the employer and employee side, except with the plan adjustments that were made, that negated that. So neither the employer nor the employee premiums are going up next year.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, also too, we were talking about trying to figure in funding for the PTO if we decide to do that towards the end of the year. What if we could bump the percentage or even maybe a little more and just say we're not going to do the PTO? Give it to
PTO
them.
is not in this.
No, but I'm just saying we were looking at that. I know it's on there. There's nothing put aside for it, but we were talking about trying to get.
Buyback?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have to do that.
So what we
It's
wanted
not
to
that much either.
So have you seen these
It is.
items that are shown in bold that have nothing on them yet? Gil's going to go through the rest of his initial presentation, and then we wanted to come back and turn on those items that you're interested in looking at to look at the bottom
That's
line
right.
impact. So we wanted to, we'll address those kinds of ideas or scenarios.
There's the addition of 1% right
So
there.
you can see the impact.
It's just whether it's before or after.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Sure, go ahead.
I'm just going to chime in on the issue that was raised regarding the 1% increase being incorporated in the market adjustment or an adjustment because of the statutes of change on minimum wage. My experience in my department, and I'm sure it's in all the others, is that causes an internal inequity. For example, I could have an employee who's below the minimum wage, been working me for 2 years, and you incorporate that increase. Now I hire someone new at minimum wage, they're making the same amount. And I
It's
think that's the
compression. We call that compression.
Yep.
And we normally want to deal with it on an individual basis, allowing the department heads to be able to adjust for seniority and those type of things. It's compression.
Right, we had a huge one back
In the discussion about the 1 or 2%, to me, it's pertinent only on the fact that both supervisors here, Supervisor McLeod and myself, I've always talked about some sort of a system where an increase is not automatic, that we allow the department head to actually reward people who do a better job. And that we, at one point in time, we talked about giving them the amount and then letting them sort it out. The problem comes when there's complaints of favoritism, there's complaints of all those kind of things, because people who don't get the similar increase than somebody else in a similar position starts complaining that it's because somebody likes them so more or whatever. But, we can get to it, once we assign the money, we can get to the distribution part, which allows us, maybe allow the flexibility to deal with compression issues or deal with the minimum wage increase as a line item and then deal with the 2% after that.
I think that's the best way to go if you do it, just based on my experience. And I'm seeing HR people nodding their head with me. So I actually had that happen with a deputy county attorney who got a market increase. And I think we had the compa ratio. It was years ago.
It was years ago.
2006
that was
or
before
7.
we paid for their
and he
student
came
loan.
to see me, and he was one of my more senior level who was now at
Same pay.
he was getting paid the same as my new intake of deputies. And we didn't do the adjustment. I didn't understand it, so I had a perfect example of it.
Right. Okay.
yeah.
Mr. Villegas?
Mr. Sherman. Let me continue with the presentation. That was just personnel. And as the county administrator mentioned, we have different scenarios here that I have zeroed them out. We'll come back and if we are one just to look, we will see what's the impact of the fund balance, the recommended fund balance. So, we did the same thing with the supplies and services. We have all the recommendations included here, capital outlay, capital leases. One of the major changes that we're doing this fiscal year is that we are not recommending or we're not using the anticipated reversions. Part of the reason why we do this because how we started the fiscal year with the healthy fund balance, I think this is the time for us to go into a more pure budgetary way of doing things. Overall, at the end, the deficiencies, which means our uses are going to be more than our revenues, are creating a structural imbalance of $2.4 million. Mm-hmm. That will bring our fund balance down to 17.3% as compared to the current fiscal year of 18.9%. The BRT, the team is comfortable recommending this percentage, 17.3, which equates to $14,772,000.
Because it's more real than the other one? Is that what you mean?
I think for the things that we want to recommend it, it's okay. From a finance point of view, of course, we're more conservative. We would like to see that number to be at least 20%. But for what we have right now, it's a good budget, a good recommendation per se, from a financial point of view. Now, in regards to supplies and services, I'm just going to open them up. I have included here already because it's our payments that we're doing currently from the state, the Arizona Department of Revenue payment. That's an estimate. This is what we paid last year, and we have not received any correspondence from the state if this amount is going to go up or down. We're just using the same amount. AC, DJC, it's, Jim, is that the amount that we?
Yes, that's the current amount.
That's the current amount.
The county is paying.
And our recommendations that we have.
Okay.
In regards to capital outlay, like Jim mentioned, we are recommending $485,000 on vehicles and other computer or data processing equipment upgrades.
On the vehicle line, do we know which departments those vehicles would be going to by now? That
That is 12 vehicles for the sheriff's office,
period.
fully equipped.
Just the sheriff's department, no other departments. Okay. Now, I did make it, during the preliminary budget presentations, I did make it a point that I'm not a very big fan of leasing, right? But you guys gave me an explanation of how these are actually purchases dressed up as leases. That was not a good way of putting it, but kind of.
It's a financial tool that we use to acquire that equipment, yes. There was a question about the transfers out and the detail. Jim pretty much explained the transfers out, what we are required to do in the maintenance of effort. In addition, we have $1.4 million that is going to serve our debt service payments. We currently have an issuance of $7.5 million that happened in 2013. That's our total debt service, principal and interest, $501,000. Current fiscal year, we issue another $2.4 million to cover for CIPs. That's $2,778,000. And for 19, we are also recommending another issuance of $5.1 million to cover all the debt service, all the capital improvement projects that were listed under Jim's presentation. That's what makes up the entire 800, actually it's $9.4 million. What I did for your presentation basis, I just put out the principal and interest payment for the newly recommended debt issuance.
Can you actually outline where the 5.11 million CIP would be needed at?
That's for, I believe Jim had a handout on the CIP.
This one? Yeah.
And we also had a summary up on Jim's presentation that listed the
Wait,
projects.
is it? Oh, okay, no, but if we have to borrow money to do the CIP, aren't we then basically using financing to balance the budget? I mean, no, you don't think so?
No, you can do one of two things when you do any kind of capital expenditure. You can buy it all at once, pay cash, $5.1 million at one time, which we can't afford to do, or you can finance it over the life of of the asset, and in this case, we're proposing financing it for 10 years, which is less than the life of most of these assets. And then it becomes an ongoing, for 10 years, you're paying that amount. So those are two options for paying for capital outlay, and that's.
Well, I don't know how Supervisor McLeod feels, but we used to be very proud of the fact that we used to save money to do our capital improvement projects over time, not finance them over time, but save over time. This is to me, this is a dangerous path. I think financing is a tool you need to use when you can't afford whatever you want to do. And I would caution the rest of the board, this may be an opportunity for you guys to take a look at the difference between saving up and getting it done with your money, or financing over 10 years and making it, so your budget will balance because you have reduced that expenditure to something small. You would spend $5 million, but you only pay $500,000 or something, like that. But that's not necessarily. I mean, I don't mind. I wouldn't mind using that tool every once in a while, but it looks to me like we're starting to get used to it, and that's not a path that I like to go down. I mean, personally. I mean, I don't know about the rest of the board, but I personally think that we ought to just, look at those things and say, okay, do we need to do them now? Can we save money? If we're gonna spend $1.6 million upgrading the building in the other side, do we wanna borrow the money to do it? Do we need to do it now? Can we save, $400,000 this year, 400,000? Can we do those things? It's not me trying to change everything. I mean, it's fine. I mean, I can understand where you guys are coming from. I just want you to know where I'm coming from. And I'm coming from a perspective that at some particular point in time, financing things just means, even if the interest rate is low, it just means that you're buying something over time that you cannot afford to get today. And that, to me, is how you get in trouble over the long run. Okay? It's just my opinion.
Hey, Mr. Chairman, yes, we read your message loud and clear, and we understood your message you made the same message, delivered the same message last year when we were doing our budget presentation as well. But due to the urgency of the projects that we have, and since we want to take advantage of our good credit that we have and the interest being at an all-time low, that's the reason why the team made their.
All right, well, I did my warning this year, I guess, but, some particular point in time, I think we need to look at that. That's how state gets into trouble. That's how, it's just another tool, financing tool to get what you want now, when you can't afford to pay it.
Mr. Chair, I mean, I think you're kind of right, but we really need to look at what is it that we need. And then, because if we wait and save up money, and if it's gonna cost us $1 million right now, and down 4 years down the road, it's gonna cost us $1.5 million.
Yeah, you don't save.
You're not saving, and that's, so we gotta look at that. What is it that we really need, if it's a need or a want, but.
Yeah. In other words, you need to look at whether the project it's really needed, whether you'll be better off doing it now than doing it later, because later it's gonna cost you more. In other words, every one of those have different factors that drives it. All right, I get it. Look, I understand it's used for like buying vehicles over time, because you got me convinced in there. But again, I'll be looking at them individually and see what justification there is to finance as opposed to pay for them up front and just bite the bullet and get it done. Right. Just Supervisor.
Supervisor Reyes, I agree with him. I don't like this path, but to me, we're on that path because we have been so conservative. We remain almost $3 million under our levy limit, where you look back 10 years ago, we were right up against the levy limit. And the board, made decisions to cut spending. It was painful. And we never did bump back up, which I think we take pride in. If we had, let's say we even went halfway there, well, there's another $1.5 million a year we'd have had in our coffers over the last several years, and we could have paid cash. So there's a balance there. I just would like to point that out. I mean, I don't like borrowing either. I think I wouldn't like to see it again. I don't even like seeing it now, but when you look at this list of items, there are things that are needed and we keep putting off and we keep putting off. Like the permit software. We've been talking about the permit software for 4 years or longer. So, we just keep putting it off because we do have a desire to pay cash for things. And I think that the fact that we have been so conservative puts us in the position now. And I agree with you, the money is rather inexpensive. That won't ever get better. So, I think I can go along with that. We do need to look at the list, though. I think the big one we need to decide, do we want to proceed with 197?
Well, at this particular time, Supervisor McLeod brings in another point, that if we feel something is so needed that we need to buy it now, maybe we ought to look at the levy, what we can pay for, as opposed to just, spending over time. Because when you shift the levy, when you move it up, then that means it moved up in the future. I mean, it's, every year that we keep the levy down $2 million or $3 million below, it just continues to go over time. So I don't want to get into that, because I know how, how we get into that, how we want to keep, now we're focused on keeping the tax rate down because we understand its impact. In the past, we used to argue that the levy was the important one because it was an easier way to justify adjusting the tax rate. But that's a very complex issue I don't want to get into right now, especially with the new supervisors up here. So let's just keep going that way. I just wanted to, put my 2 cents in there.
Thank you,
about
Mr. Chairman.
borrowing money.
My last point is just what Jim alluded to in regards to the reserve for future purchases, fund balances. This year, we're earmarking $500,000 for a possible fleet management program, and 1/3 of PIL, just to mitigate the possible loss of that revenue coming in.
Yeah, that would be
Well,
good.
I would
I
like
would
to
be
make
willing to.
one comment about that, and that is, this is still part of reserves. It's also one-time money. So if something were to happen, this would just be a cushion that we could use those funds to bridge us to actually creating a real solution, because that would be $3.5 million of ongoing funding going away is a huge impact. We estimate is about 66 positions. And so this would only allow us a cushion of time. We'd have some funding to get us time to create a plan to reduce those expenditures or raise those revenues in some way. But this is one-time money, and PILT is ongoing, so it doesn't really solve the problem. It helps us bridge to get time to solve the problem.
But aren't we just building the reserves up? I mean, if that is the case, I mean, aren't we just building the reserves up and actually just putting in a line inside the reserves that says, if this happens, we'll take this money?
Yeah.
I mean, if it's part of the reserves, then it's not really an ongoing, a recurring expense. I mean, we do have it, I guess, whatever we spend every year that we always know we're gonna spend is recurring. Whatever we save every year that we know we're gonna save every year, it's recurring. But when we call it a one-time, shot, like we're doing right now, that presents, well, to me, it presents a problem when you're trying to move money from a one-time, line item to a recurring line item. And to me, salaries are recurring line items. So, it just depends on what you want to spend it on, I suppose. But if it reduces the reserve, then it defeats the purpose, to me, of being able to shift some of this funding. Okay.
So the spreadsheet contemplates for those different scenarios that you were talking about. If we are contemplating not financing the CAP or do the whole entire expense on CAP, we can actually play with the spreadsheet right now. One of the things that we have been warned about is the increase on the elected officials retirement plan. I think it's imminent that it's going to go from 23.5% to 61.5%, or either 30%. So
What does that look like in there? If it goes to 61, it'll be 750, right? And if it goes to 30, it would be what?
If it goes to 30, it would be close to $135,000, $134,397.
The hit could be between 130 and 750.
Right.
Wow.
That we don't know.
Right.
So if we are to increase our,
It's gonna go to 30 at the minimum.
At the minimum.
At the minimum, it will go to 30,
If
yeah.
CSA gets what they've asked for.
if we are contemplating adding those
Way to
additional
pay it down
expenditures,
yourself, or everybody else at the same time.
We could, yeah, I think so.
The question was, is there a way to pay that obligation down yourself without being forced to increase it by 5% or 10% or whatever? Is there a bill that says, okay, look, you'll be fine if you pay this much now, as opposed to every year figuring out, what the difference is? There's no actuary amount. Like, for example, if they come back and say, okay, you need to increase it to 61%. I mean, what does that mean? Does that mean every year from now on, that'll be your payment?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, that is correct.
So there's no way to pay into the system $1 million and say, look, that's it. We'll come back to us.
At this point, I'm not aware of any other mechanism to make up.
Really, that puts
If
you
we
in a
had
ship.
$15 million
the
sitting
Titanic.
around, we could probably do that.
Well, no, I mean, it may not be 15 million. I mean, what happens is this is like compound interest. It gets better, or it gets worse, depending on how much you contribute to it. So, to me, I mean, there should be somebody smart enough to do some actuarial, figures that says, okay, if this is how much money you need to bring your side of things to the point. I mean, it's like my individual retirement is different than somebody else's individual retirement. There is no such figure available.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, I haven't heard anything. So let's say that it's going to cost us another $757,000. That's going to have an impact to our fund balance, the bottom line. If we want to bring it back to our 17.3%, it will require, of course, another 757,000, which equates to 6 cents, 6.4 cents in our current tax rate.
But that's what happens, right? If you get a new bill that isn't included in there, then you have to adjust either your tax rate, you levy, or cut something off.
That is correct, yeah. We increase the revenue or we reduce the
Something else.
expenditures. Any other scenarios we were talking about, the additional?
An additional
1%?
1%, yeah, at 388,000, 392? It went up already. Supervisor McCall, it went up it went up $4,000 in the moment we were talking about it. It was 388 a while ago. Somebody's got a salary increase when we were talking about it.
The additional 1%
I'm just kidding.
would be another
It's in
392,000.
the difference right there.
So why is
Why is
1%
it
different?
Because
Why is
you're
it
on,
388 and
when you
one
go
is
up 1%,
392
the
the other?
base is now higher, and so another 1% is gonna.
Well, yeah,
Oh,
but
no,
this
no,
is
no,
supposed to
you
happen
want
at the same
2%.
time. It's one additional
compounding
1%.
it.
You're compounding it now. You have 1% of that already with the addition of the 1%. I mean, look, I don't think that the $4,000 is going to make that much of a difference, but it does raise questions.
That's what happened.
Yeah.
So that's an additional 1.1 hit to the fund balance.
Yeah.
Now we're talking 9.7 cents to the tax
That's
rate.
combined, right? That
Yeah.
not
Right.
just the salary
Combined.
increase, but the
Remember,
the
we're
R.
departing from the new
247. Yeah.
calculated tax rate at 247.92.
What's the old tax rate? 2.5. So if you-
2.5016.
okay. All right. So you're still under the tax rate that we used to that we have right now, right?
Yeah, but you're dropping your
Yes.
fund balance down.
Yeah, you
I
are.
know, but I mean, yeah,
So
I get it. Yeah.
You'll use some fund
Yeah,
balance and
yeah.
not levy.
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, it's true.
We
So
can
where's
calculate
that, where's that other 6%? Where can we go to the flood control district and take some, taxing authority from them and put it in here? Where's the flood control district people? They're not here, are they? No? Good. Let's do that. No, I'm just kidding, guys. Just kidding.
I know that Supervisor Simmons talked about PTO buyback. Is that something
Yeah,
you
that's
wanted to
right,
look
PTO
at or no?
buyback.
No.
I mean, that was sort of like
A
a
one-time shot?
one-time deal that we thought, okay, well, fine, it's nice. Let's see what the
We
cost
did
is.
that because there was no raises.
Yeah, we did that because it was very.
But we were talking about looking at it, what
Didn't
would
we?
it cost included now in the budget instead of getting hit with the
530,000?
How much is it?
No, that's not
For
right.
up to 20 hours PTO for the entire county would mean $530,000.
No.
52% of that belongs to the general fund.
No, but wait a minute. How much, let's just be realistic. How much of it was used last year? How many people actually went into this program?
Mhm.
The projection is based on expenditures that we had in the last time that we have offered.
Really?
Yeah.
That's how much it cost? 500 and some odd $1,000?
For the entire county, that's
No,
an
no, no.
average.
I know, but not everybody uses that.
Oh,
Some people, use up their PTO, they use it up. I mean, the way they should. They take vacations, they get sick.
Oh,
People get sick.
Mr. Chairman, this
especially
is,
from
this
levies.
is based on historical expenditures. It would be very hard for us to come
Okay,
up
that's
with
what it is, right?
a
Wow.
calculation of how many hours people are gonna have at the end of the
That's not
fiscal year.
529 is all funds.
529 is the entire Yuma County, and only 275 is for the general fund.
And that's only for 20. That's only for 20 hours, right?
But I would want to make a point that our
rather
county
give
attorney
them a salary
has
increase.
opined that if the special revenue funds, the other all funds of 529,000, if those funds can't pay for it, the general fund is obligated to pay.
I'm gonna say it this way. If we offer a 2% salary increase, we're not gonna be offering the PTO buyback, period. As far as I'm concerned, we've done enough.
We did that
Yeah.
because there weren't raises.
That's right. We did that
That's
because
what
we
I was-
wanted to
That's
increase.
what kind of what I was saying, if we do the 2%, is it better to do the 2% and then the buyback or
Oh, no.
not do the buyback or
Let's
the
do
1% buyback?
I wouldn't do the buyback if we do the 2%. I think
2%.
Yeah.
No, he's asking is it better to do one
One in the buyback? No.
One in the buyback.
No, because not
That's what the
everybody will
question is.
have.
That's
Or
what
do
he's
the
asking.
2% and don't do the buyback?
That's right.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, because the
that's
two
what I was
percent
kinda looking
goes,
at.
it ends up going on their retirement,
Yeah, that's right.
and that's what you want. Basically, I mean, as an employee, you want.
This would be a good year for the
2%.
employees. If they get a 2% and no increase on the health plan, they
It
should
would
be happy. They
Yeah.
should be. I mean, I don't know.
Well, considering everything, yeah.
Yeah, considering everything.
Considering the benefit, never mind.
Yeah, no kidding. Continue, Villegas.
Oh, yeah.
Just the 2% and the ER,
We're still under the 251, wouldn't we?
it would include another 9.7 cents.
Where are we now with everything in that we put in there? 247? No, what I'm saying is, where are we now if you add the 9.7 to what you had? That one there. Where would you be? 2.5 something?
2.5763.
Jeez. What created that big jump? The orb, isn't it? The orb is the one, that's the driver of that increase, right? If we had, let's put in 130 there, just to be, I mean, go down below, erase that one and put it in there. I don't think anybody is going to take a 61% increase, but let's just figure out that it's going to be around there. Let's see what happens to the tax
It's going to be
rate.
30.
Yeah, it's going to be more likely. So go down and see what that does to the tax rate, the bottom.
We're talking another 4.45.
Okay, so to what? To the 2.47? No.
2.5237.
So it's still higher than the.
Still higher than the 2.5016.
Yeah.
Look, we were talking about seriously considering, I mean, I joked around with the flood control district thing, but, you know, at the end of the day, that is an option.
We're getting there.
I'm looking at this
We're not
guy,
there
you know,
yet.
there's no fire coming
Keep
out
it
of
at
there,
the
you know.
2.50.
Look, I wasn't very enthused by the idea initially, but I'm growing into it. The idea is to keep, basically, guys, I mean, I don't know if anybody's got, you know, what we're doing. The idea is to try to keep the tax levy
The same.
the same,
Mm-hmm.
okay? That's the idea. And if we could find a way to, you know, our way into keeping the tax rate the same by a combination, I think it would work for us. For me, it would work.
I would suggest that you go back and actually put in the 61.5% on EOR, because if you don't, I don't have any, I'm hoping for the best, but I think we need to plan for the worst, and that is
You know, it's the same
700.
thing with the
Well,
bill.
we'll know this
you know.
week.
Yeah.
Like, we're 1 week ahead. We should know this week.
Yeah, we should.
If they come back with 61%, it's going to drive everybody's budget out of whack.
Well,
That's
there's some
already,
counties-
that
They
is
know that.
already going to happen unless something changes. So that is the default position, is the 61.5%. That's not
Unless they act.
right, unless there's a way to get them
Where are
to
we
back
getting,
off of it.
where are we
So
getting the money from? You know, if you put it up like that, where are we getting the money from? Is it a different funding than the PILT set aside? Are we getting it from the reserves? Are you looking at additional
we cannot use
expenditures and then we
reserves. This
want
is
to?
an ongoing expense that we need to provide ongoing revenue stream for. So can we just, if you don't mind, can we just walk through a scenario where we put that back
Yeah.
in, take out the
Mhm.
30%?
I agree with
Look
that.
at the bottom
Mhm.
line. If you are interested in the additional 1%, then you're looking at 9.7 cents increase. Now, if you want
Why
us
would
to
you do
look
it?
at funding scenarios with the tax rate, we can move to that spreadsheet. If you're comfortable looking at it from this perspective. So we'll show you some alternatives that we identified.
Well, let's see if you can come to
Well,
251.
There's something,
Yeah.
I wanted to interject one
Yeah,
thing.
sure.
You know, as you can see, we're just piling on and piling on
Yeah,
these
well, sure.
impacts to our budget. The budget team came up with a 1% increase in salary adjustment. Now all of a sudden it's up to 2, another, you know, almost $400,000. I would propose this, that we could do that if we get the relief from the ADJC. Because the numbers are almost the same,
Let's see.
because we're just piling on and piling
Yeah.
on. So
Mhm.
if we get that, then I can easily support the 2%. If not, I mean, we gotta start drawing the line somewhere.
Well, I'm going to support the 2% no matter where you draw the line. I mean, seriously, this is not, this is a situation where you start thinking about people over things. I mean, if you have a choice. I mean, it's fine. I understand that. Okay? But I do want you to tell you that I made it a point. I mean, a 1% increase when we're dealing with all this other stuff and we're putting aside money and we're doing all these things, it's just not, to me, it's not going to work out well. We sacrifice long years of very lean things, and I think the employees basically sustained us then. I mean, we didn't do anything. We figured out ways to make sure that they felt. We did some other things, but at some particular point in time, either you do. See, what my problem is, whenever you're driving salaries by a market rate study, you're going to be behind in the market if you keep increasing it by 1%. I mean, eventually everybody's going to be below market because 1% increase doesn't even cover the cost of living most of the time. So why would you want to get into that vicious cycle of waiting until you have to do market studies or you have to do, major salary increases? It just, if the economy is better and we can afford to give our employees a decent salary increase, I think that's the first thing that you begin with in a budget. Everything else just sort of has to, match. And so to me, tying a 1% increase on the justice court payment, it just isn't the way I would approach it. I'd say that we consider the 2% and then we adjust everything else to it. I mean, that's my take. And it's not the first time Supervisor McLeod and I don't necessarily agree, but I think we both want to do the right thing, and to me, the right thing is to provide that. And we're just looking for a way without having to increase, tax rates and doing those things. And so, if you guys find a better way for us to stick around with the same tax rate, I'll be glad to hear it.
So go down to the bottom line again, just as a refresh.
Well, I'll remind you how many times you insisted that the levy was the important one.
Oh, yeah, it is. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That hasn't changed.
So if we are wanting to address the additional ELARP, which we have no control over, and it's a worst case scenario, but I think it's likely unless something can really happen, and we're hopeful. And another 1% increase for the salaries, it's 9.7 cents additional on the tax rate. So we want to look at the tax rates that we currently have for all of our taxing entities and go through that process.
Tied it into the justice court.
So Gil, you want to walk us through where we are with this?
Definitely. Okay. So we have created this spreadsheet to show what's the impact from the taxpayer point of view. This is listing all the property taxes that we currently have adopted, which is for the general fund, 2.5016, flood control, 2.2794, the library district, both operations and debt service, 0.90, for a total of 3.6844. On an average home of $135,000 for current adopted budget, we're talking about taxes of $497.39 a year.
And that's the median home price currently?
That's the average home price.
Average or median?
It won't be the median. It's higher.
I believe it's the average.
The average?
Yes.
It's higher now.
It is higher.
Now, providing there is no assessed value increase, the recommended that we're doing right now, of course, the tax rate we explained is going down. Flood control is staying the same. Library district, we're recommending to stay the same rate. However, the debt service for the library district, the payment for the upcoming year is not going to be as much as the prior year. Each year is a different payment according to interest and according to principal. So it's going to be driving the interest down to 0.8872. 78, I'm sorry. Recommended for tax year 19 is a total of $492.26, a reduction of $5.13 a year. This is we compare adopted against recommended. I have provided additional space here if we want to look at different scenarios when it comes to tax rates, and that way we can see what will be the impact to the bottom line from Yuma County.
What have you done? You have adjusted those?
Not yet.
Not yet. This is the same scenario right now
Oh, I see.
that we have as recommended.
I'm sorry, Gil, I want to ask a question.
Yes, sir.
Just
Mhm.
the $750,000 for EORP that you showed us, that number, is that the number of dollars of increase from what we're paying today? Is that just pure increase, or is that the total, including what we pay today?
That is just the increase.
That's just the increase. Okay, I
Increase,
wanted to
yes.
make sure that I had that correct. Thank you,
Yes.
Gil.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I want to make sure.
If we want to talk about the 6.4 cents that particular item will require, formula is not working. If it will drive the tax rate up to 2.5432.
That's to cover the
Just
750,
to cover
This is just the 750.
just that. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
We're not considering the other 1% as well.
9.7.
So what happens with the flood control district? Are the projects
We're
funded?
not there yet.
Oh, no, I know. I mean, what?
This is the total,
$10.
including the 1%, the additional 1%. It will mean another $10 a year for a taxpayer,
With no other change in the
with no
tax
other
rate.
changes, of course.
What you want? Look, if you give me enough time, I'll say something. If I say something, it's going to be it's not gonna
In
sound
direction
right.
from Susan here, yes?
Yeah, why don't you go to flood control and subtract 6.4?
If we subtract the 0.64 just for the EORP, we'll be reducing the taxes for $8.64. Total impact would be a negative 66 cents to the taxpayer.
We also talked about taking the
debt-
opportunity, if the library debt service is going down, to move that debt service increment up to the operations, because as you know, the
Mhm.
fund
That
balance
would
is
be,
going
that would be
down.
a sensible thing to do,
Yes,
yeah.
it would.
Right, so we'd like to, let's look at that scenario.
Uh, Saying
2582 minus
this minus that.
No,
It's over on the debt service rate, 2582 minus 2426.
Thank you.
yeah.
Vicky. The difference between the debt service, the adopted and recommended, if we just add it to the operational, the total impact would be 0 for the library district.
How come it changes the bottom to 144? It should have stayed at once.
Because now, exactly, it's the difference between the $10 and the flood control.
Yeah, but that would, you were taking from one and putting it in the other one. It shouldn't have had an impact on shouldn't have changed at all.
It is,
Secondary.
It's just weird, because now you know. Huh?
Right.
before there was a credit on the library, now it's not. It's been zeroed out.
Oh, well, then,
Before we had a,
Oh.
Oh, it was already
reduction of
included.
$2. Now we
That
have
reduction
zeroed
was
out.
already there.
Yeah, okay, get it.
So in essence, there is no impact compared to the current fiscal year.
Yeah, there's a $144 impact
For a year.
per year.
It's a
Addition of
$1.44
$1.44.
increase per year.
And that covers the 750
plus the 1%,
And the 1%.
the additional 1%.
And the additional 1%
Yes.
salary increase?
Yes.
So it's a 2%, plus we're covering the worst case scenario.
Yes.
It's
I
tough.
can live with
I can live with that too, but, remember, if it doesn't come out to be that high, that would actually change that.
Right.
Yeah.
It would
As
reduce
long
it
as
to
we
be low.
agree that we need to cover what the state does to us.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
we
right.
have to.
And then, so if that impact is less, then we're able to do,
Just helps
I would
out.
still do the same thing, but reduce.
Yeah, in other words, just, cut it down. Okay. We
You
seem
guys did a
to,
good job.
although I'll tell you, taxes are like pregnancy. If you raise them, you raise them.
Don't go there.
Of course. Supervisor McLeod would have a tough time, with that analogy all the time. But, okay, so you basically balance the budget by adding a little bit here and taking a little bit there. Yeah, that's right.
One
And,
more
and
thing.
at this particular time, we're not sure we were gonna need to do that until we find out what the final numbers are, which still allows us flexibility to lower that, or use the difference for something important, like not borrowing money,
Yes.
not borrowing it. Okay?
But
So
not
we should
borrowing
find
money.
out by the end of the week on AZ, juvenile corrections, Department of Juvenile Corrections, and we're gonna know what EOR impacts are. So,
All right.
will you represent this then at the next regular board meeting a week from today?
Yes.
With whatever the updates are?
Just keep it
Because
as an
my
update while
understanding
we're
is-
going through the process.
Juvenile corrections, we are getting the relief.
That would be great. It's just
So-
hard to believe this.
That
Until the
pays for our-
legislature's done, you don't want to make
Think
any.
positive.
All right,
Thanks
it
for our
probably goes,
1%.
it probably goes to the teachers.
Mhm.
Let's move on.
Yeah.
So,
I had something
so
else.
let's go back to the spreadsheet for the general fund. This should show that that's.
Anything that's
Means
not,
we'll never get it back.
It will
Yeah.
go back up to the,
all right, so what's next?
so we just wanted to get your direction on this. The library district, we don't really have an official presentation on it. The switch from the debt service to operating will help some. We'll probably want to bring that to you and just show what that impact is. And then show you a long-term forecast of what is going to be needed for library to stop the
Declining
decline in the fund balance over time.
How much
Hopefully
does it
this
cost
will
to
help.
run the Foothills Library?
Nah, don't do
What?
that. How much does
Yeah.
it
How much
cost to
does it
run the
cost to run
Foothills
the
Library?
Foothills
Don't even get there.
That's nominal.
Don't get there, man. I'm gonna bring the pregnancy example again for you.
Heritage, we need to start charging room and board outside that.
Yeah.
No kidding, huh? Uh-huh.
So what does
Well-
that do to our
Mr. Chairman, I think.
reserve? 1751? Ah, that's good, huh? We're in
You
we're in a
fix that,
deficit.
Whatever you did.
Unless
Okay,
there were
meanwhile-
any other scenarios you wanted to look at, any
No.
other line
Yeah,
item
no, we
changes?
do.
No, no.
There's one more thing we need to talk about.
Really?
Mhm.
What
I
is it?
think we need to discuss 197 Main.
Yeah.
I mean, we had to talk about that at some point. Because if we're budgeting and we're going to borrow, we need to make sure that's what the board wants to do.
I tell you what, I think we're, again, sort of like, we've committed. I mean, unless somebody has any other opinions that we're not gonna do it, and we're gonna do it someplace else, I mean, we're committed to making the improvements over there that makes that a fully functional, operation. Otherwise, what's the use of, doing all those improvements and leaving the middle, without finishing?
But if we budget for it each year and save towards it, like you're saying, and it may be 3 years down the road, but
In this particular case, I think I lean on saying that it isn't gonna get any cheaper if we wait, and that, the additional increase in cost of construction
yeah,
may offset any savings we make in terms of borrowing the money to do it now.
that's 1.6.
On top of that, I've been around for 20 years. I think we've done everything for everybody that we could ever possibly think. We've been sitting here for 20 years. This is my 20th year in this particular same location.
So bad.
Really?
Okay? Yes, and I think that, I could be justified in saying
The
that
state-
waiting another 2 or 3 years
You want
might
a
be
new seat.
beyond the time. I like to see it done. you know, in case I leave soon. And to me, postponing for another 3 years,
That's just a
Ma-
big chunk
yeah,
on top of
well,
what we've
I
already
know.
spent.
It is. I agree with Supervisor Torch's comment that, you know, our construction costs aren't going to go
It's
down.
not. They're actually getting higher.
And
It's
we've
been,
seen numerous times, all too often, this room is not adequate.
Mm-hmm.
and on top of that, I think that the technology requirements that are coming up, I just can't be met here. I mean, you know, we cannot do the things we want to do in terms of staying up with all the, you know, latest communication technology so that people can actually participate. It can't be done any further here. I mean, we're just stuck in a 20-year situation.
Well, I just wanted to talk about it because there's something that the board has not made that decision. I mean, the budget team has brought
Put it
that
up.
to us and put it in front of us. I just felt that we should have that discussion to make sure that we are on board with moving that direction.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm not really enthused about the idea of borrowing money to do it, but I also understand the problematic situation that it brings to postpone it. Because if we keep postponing it, it just may end up being, you know, look, I'll give you an example. The border crossing in San Luis, Arizona, at one particular time was a $27 million project. It's now an $84 million project. Then it became a $224 million project. And just been 10 years. So it's, you know, in construction, and I'm in the construction field right now. When you talk about the price of a home now, that median price is probably not even current now because you can't find anything that you can build for $135,000 anywhere in the county. And I'm afraid that's just what's going to happen if we keep delaying doing the improvements we committed to the moment we chose 197 as our next location. Because if you will remember, I was not very happy with that. I always said that, you know, it's always better to build new than to redo something. And that proved
Oh,
to be just the case to prove the point.
I agree.
I don't
But-
agree.
But we're
We
already,
did that for a lot less than a new building.
yes, but look at all the problems, employees, well, I don't want to get into that, but look at the happiness factor, you know, of the new building. And I just hope every one of those issues is resolved before we move in there.
They've been resolved.
Well,
Right, Dave?
you know, who knows,
What came back good?
with us moving in there, it may not be resolved. But anyway, no, I think we're committed to that location. And I think the fact is that the more we put it back or set it back, that it's not going to get any better. And I think we ought to finish the product at least before we leave. I don't want to leave it for somebody else to, you know, deal with it. So I'm
You
okay.
can't leave.
No, I mean,
Oh, you
yeah,
can't leave.
yeah, well,
No.
you know, that's in God's
You
hands
can't
now.
either. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to do it. And if it's the problem, it's which way we do it, that's fine. I mean, I can understand that. But
There-
we want to do it.
There will be a CIP presentation on May 10th. You have the sessions May 9th and 10th.
Oh, that's
with
right.
all the
Yeah,
departments,
we'll talk
so
about
that'll
it.
be- And there are also maybe some other considerations that we want to bring up related to 197 as well. at
All
that
right,
time.
got it. Anything else? Anything else, board members? No? Has this been enough damage? Okay, I guess it is. Thank you very much. It was a very good presentation. Thank you, guys, all of you that have worked on the budget. You've done an excellent job. I did not think so a few days ago, but now I've changed my mind.
You're bad.
All right, guys. Yeah, I'm adjourning this meeting, not even letting them say anything about it.
This meeting